Tonight we present, for your consideration, a story. A story that takes place some 30 years ago, circa 1971, in the shadow of this electrical generating plant and nearby this restroom. The story of a young man and an automobile. But this is no ordinary young man, and this is no ordinary automobile. For the young man is me, and the automobile, a 1964 red Ford Fairlane station wagon. And now, we take you to the Twilight Zone.
So it was on a day not like this, in the fall, that Mike Carnes and Dion Medley and I had decided that we were going to skip school and go to Parkersburg to the music store, ostensibly to buy an amplifier. Unfortunately, we didn't buy an amplifier. We didn't know that was fortunate at the time, but in hindsight, it was very fortunate that we didn't buy the amplifier. So we had come out of this restroom, the restroom right here behind me. We had gone in here to take a whiz, and out we came. And we were standing around in a little small circle, and I was sort of standing facing the restroom, much as I am right now. Actually, I was looking at Mike and Dion, and we were smoking cigarettes. And suddenly one of them says to me, "Your car." Thinking that it was my car had been stolen, I spun around, and what do I see but my car slowly making its way along the park. So I took off running in pursuit of my car. I took off running down through this very park. I was trying to catch up with my car, thinking that my car was going to go out into the road and I needed to catch it before it went out into Route 60. But my car does not go along Route 60. My car turns down into this park. So I continue to run, chasing my car along, thinking that I'm going to catch up with it. Suddenly, I see the car has missed these trees. It's missed all the obstacles. It is now in the park. It's now making its way toward the river. I finally realized that even if I do catch the car, what am I going to do? I can grab hold of the bumper. I'm not going to be able to stop the car. The car is destined to go into the river. Somehow, the car missed all these trees. These were my last two chances right here. This picnic table, this tree, my last two chances for the car not to go in the river. Missed them both. Right into the river, right here. Plunging into the muddy Muskingum River where it sat, running water up to the windows. And I'm thinking, it's only in up to its windows. You can probably get the thing out. Of course, at that very moment, bloop, 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 bloop. The car sinks out of sight. Right here, my car disappeared from sight. Nothing but bubbles and an oil slick. Over there, across the river, is a guy in a rowboat, a fisherman, laughing his ass off, looking at us, looking at me, looking at my car in the river, laughing his ass off. From this distance, I can see him laughing his ass off, slapping his knees. So I run to the highway. I start frantically flagging people. No one would stop, of course. Bunch of dope-crazed, long-haired hippies. So finally, the old fisherman over there starts rowing back across the river. And he puts his boat in over here on the bank, makes his way over here. He's still laughing hysterically. "Boy, she went down, didn't she?" And I get in the truck that he had. We rode down to Beverly, went to the place to get a tow truck. So I get the tow truck driver and I said, "My car's in the river. You know, I need you to get it out." Of course, everybody wants to know, is there anybody in the car? So we come back with the tow truck. He's down here in the park with the tow truck. And it suddenly occurs to him, he can't see the car. He doesn't know how he's going to get the car. So he tells me, well, I don't think we can get the car out. I'm not going out in that water. As luck would have it, just a few scant moments later, along come Paul Krabs and Wally Wallace. And I explained to him that yes, my car was in the river, at the bottom of the muddy Muskingum River, and we had no way to get the car out of the river. Wally and Paul agree that they'll swim out into the river with the hook off of the tow truck, and they'll retrieve my car from the river. So out they go into the river, swimming out with the hook from the tow truck, treading water. So they start lowering the hook from the tow truck into the water, trying to snag my car. They get it hooked, they pull it up tight, they give them the thumbs up, pull the thing up, and up comes the door handle. Again, they lower the hook. Feeling something secure on the end of the hook, they give them the thumbs up, and up comes a piece of the grill. So after about 3 or 4 attempts and 3 or 4 pieces of the car coming up on the end of the hook, they decide this isn't going to work. So at this point, they decide to make a big lasso. They're going to lasso the car. And indeed, they lassoed the vehicle eventually, but not before a huge crowd had gathered here in this very park. People from all over 2 or 3 counties had come because there was a car in the river, and the story was that there were people in the car, perhaps a family. Morbid curiosity seekers, not the least of which was the state trooper, the state highway patrolman, who long before we hooked the car thought that we should probably just abandon the whole project so that he could get home and go deer hunting. It happened to be deer season. No, squirrel season. So we're trying to get the car. It's getting closer and closer to dusk, and finally the guy says, "Why don't you just leave the car in the river?" I was shocked. I was incredulous. I said, "There must be some kind of a law about leaving a car in the river." He said, No, there isn't. Why don't you just leave it in there? Then I could get home and I could do some squirrel hunting. I said, "Even a littering law? No reason I can't." "No, you should just leave it in there." Well, anyway, we didn't have to do that because Paul and Wally lassoed the car, and they were able to pull it up over this very bank right here. So right up out of here came my car, up over this bank, and we hooked it up to the tow truck, and away we went to Dennis Huck's house. So right here is where Denny Huck lives. There's Dennis's house right there, and Dennis was one of the best mechanics ever. Still is, I think. He still works maybe at Central Ohio Coal or at some bus garage. But at that time, Dennis Huck was a mechanic for the National Guard. So we brought the car here. We brought it to Dennis's house, where he was going to help me see if we could get the thing torn down and get it running again. So we completely disassembled the engine, and on Dennis's advice, we decided that we were going to flush out the block of the engine. We took out all the spark plugs, we took all the plugs out of the engine, and Dennis decided that what we should do is we should run some diesel fuel through it or some kerosene to flush out the sand and the river water and kind of get the block cleaned out. So right over here at Dennis's house, with the car disassembled, we run some kerosene through the block, and all this river water and sand and silt's coming out the bottom, out where the oil plug is. And finally, after we'd done this, Dennis says, "Well, let's see if the thing will turn over." So with all the plugs out and everything sort of scattered under the hood, I get into the car, I hit the ignition, kaboom! As soon as the spark hits, up in flames goes my car. So I jump out, Dennis jumps out, we're grabbing all these feed sacks, we're beating on the car, trying to put the fire out, which we did successfully. And finally, Dennis Huck, extraordinary mechanic that he is, was able to get the car running. I was able to drive the 1964 Ford Fairlane wagon again. Well, the problem was the car really stunk. I mean, really stunk. It smelled like dirty river water and dead fish. Oh, dirty river water and really dead fish. And I could never get the smell out. So, on a nice sunny day, when it was reasonably warm, not long after having reassembled the car, a day maybe not unlike this, I decided I would take all the carpet and all the seats out of the car, which I did at my mom's house at the farm. Took the seats, laid them out in the sun, took hosed them off real good, and I decided I needed to really hose out the inside of the car, get the headliner, get all, just everything washed out really well. So with the seats still out, I decided that I would put a lawn chair in the car and drive it to town to the car wash, so I could use the high pressure car wash hose to hose it out. So that way I would be able to get all of the fishy smell off the headliner and off all the upholstery and everything. So I got a lawn chair in the car. So I'm driving like this all the way to McConnellsville on my lawn chair. Barely able to see out of the vehicle because the lawn chair is obviously taller than a car seat. And thus I arrived here at what was then a car wash. Clearly it is not now a car wash, but at that time it was a car wash, a two-bay car wash just across from Elliott's Laundromat and here near Finley Fire Equipment. So I took my station wagon into the car wash and I washed it out with the high pressure hose, lots of soap, rinsed it out real well, but was just never really able to get rid of that fishy smell. It still smelled like dead fish and dirty river water. And so I soon traded the stinky, smelly 1964 Ford Fairlane wagon off, right here at Balderson's Dodge Motor Sales on Maple Avenue in Zanesville.
After the car had been traded away, but certainly within the span of 1 year after the date of this terrible incident, a statement issued by the Ford Motor Company. The 1964 Ford Fairlane station wagon was prone to pop out of park. As the car would sit idling, the transmission would pop out of park, allowing the car to coast as if in neutral. Coast, in this case, into the Muskingum River. An irony or a trip into the twilight zone?